took some out.
Okay, it's here.
I'm going to
Hello.
comment that.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Angelica Underwood, and I love to connect with successful entrepreneurs during my live radio show and live stream shows. I'm committed about getting you what you want in business and in life. I find the right experts that have the answers that you have been searching for. And today I have an amazing speaker with me, an international trainer. Ken, welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Angelica. Thank you for having me. Tonight we're going to
Thanks.
talk about my favorite topic.
Yes, the topic is creating a bridge to inner wisdom. So I think favorite topic too. I mean, it's amazing to be able to connect with your inner wisdom. And for those of you that are listening, Kenneth Kosha is an international training director. In fact, he's a director for all Silva instructors and has facilitated and coached over 100,000 people from all over the world. And Ken is committed to the Silva method and has been teaching the work of Jose Juan and Laura Silva for about, 43 years? Wow, that's a lot of time. And that's commitment, guys. So that is just beautiful to see that. It takes commitment and devotion and an inspiration to really do the work that you have been doing. And also for those of you that are listening, I mean, Ken is best known for helping his students discover and apply practical skills. Do you want to share any of that information, Ken?
Oh, sure, I'd be very happy to. In
Okay.
fact, I think maybe even more importantly, although we only have about an hour to share, and I'll do my best, we both together do our best to share as much as we can, because usually I have 4 days. And the overview, I'd like to just paint the picture, because it ties into how and why I'm here in all these years. It's really, to me, creating a bridge to inner wisdom. A subtitle would be how to focus our intuition meaningfully, accurately, so that we can have breakthrough living. So, for example, on the call tonight, there may be small business owners, fellow entrepreneurs, as you said, and especially whenever I work with entrepreneurs, they are such high risk takers. Personally, I'm very conservative, and well, I guess I took a big risk in getting involved. This is my career. I was studying engineering way back at Boston University, and I left that, obviously, got involved in this. So I guess you could say I did take a big risk. But entrepreneurs often have ideas, and they might have 10 ideas. They might act on all 10 of those ideas, and 9 of them fail miserably. But they learn what better to do the next time. And it's interesting, I find that everybody, not just entrepreneurs, salespeople, spouses, parents, we all have this inner guidance, this inner wisdom. It's been called different things depending who you read throughout the ages. Even now, neuroscience. You've interviewed, for example, Mark Waldman. He's a good friend of mine. He's a brilliant neuroscientist. Anyone who's not familiar with him should read his work. But now neuroscientists are locating specific parts of the brain that they believe have to do with what we call intuition. That is the ability to get information beyond, somehow, some way, beyond our physical senses, our 5 senses. And so when you say with myself, I started in '71 with the Silva method. I was mentored personally by Jose Silva. I am literally the senior instructor, the most experienced. It was my great good fortune, but I have to tell you, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I was raised in a dogmatic Roman Catholic background. So I didn't even know what meditation was. I knew about prayer, reflection. Again, it was very dogmatic. In fact, when I told my mother and father what I had heard, about this Silva mind control, you may remember when you did it, that's what we called it, she turned white as a ghost. She made the sign of the
Oh,
cross,
yeah.
started praying for me. Like, oh my God, what's he doing? And why I bring this up and why it's important is back then I didn't consciously know, but I went to an introductory lecture. I was 45 minutes late. I was physically present, but mentally absent. I thought it was a joke. I only went because my good friend's sister was dating the instructor, and we were there to support him, to fill up the room. Within the time, though, something shifted inside me. I just felt like I found what I've been looking for, but I had no idea what I found, and I had no clue that I was even looking for anything. It just felt right. I felt guided. It's all I could think about. The next day, I went to the library. I checked the sources. I probably drove my friends crazy because I'm talking to everybody. You got to check this out. 3 days later, I was in the class, and it turned me. I was flunking out of Boston University. I had a 1.81 cumulative average, which people don't remember what the numbers mean. It's like D minus. And I went through the 4 days of the Silva method training. I applied what I learned. I graduated cum laude,
Oh,
almost
wow.
almost 4.0, 3.8 and 3.9 respectively. And I was full-time Silva instructor in metropolitan Boston, working for somebody who wanted to be an administrator. And I was the young kid, so I did all the teaching for him throughout the area. That's how I met my wife, too. She knew me in school, and, I was on the go all the time. I mean, it's really a joy. It's like I became centered, I became focused. And now when I look back, I'm here today still 43 years later. I've been to 25 countries. Although we have millions of Silva grads worldwide, I've worked personally with well over 100,000. It's been an
Wow.
honor and a privilege. And I say that because to watch people transform before your very eyes. And I mean, your radio show and what you're doing, I mean, I really admire you and I want to acknowledge you because I don't know if people realize it, it's a lot of work putting on these shows.
A lot of work.
They see you having fun and smiling and meeting some cool people, but it takes a lot of effort in just getting the word out. And I appreciate that and I respect you for that because we have a lot of work to do. And part of
Mm.
what this means to me, this work, is it's awakening people's consciousness. It's about awakening to the truth of who we are, our connection in the universe, that we do have choices, that we don't have, and that there's a lot of misinformation. For example, if I may, I was reading Greg Braden's newsletter today, and it's interesting the timing that he came in, and I took a quick peek, and I'd like to just give him the credit because he wrote something, and in fact I'll read it so I can really do him justice. He said,
Okay.
"A new world has arrived, and life as we've known it in the past has changed forever." I have to
Mm.
agree with that. When I
Wow.
first started in this field, nobody even knew what meditation was unless you were a Buddhist or a monk, and now it's become so mainstream. And even now, when we look at the work we do and how many people are doing this kind of work, doctors, neuroscientists, psychologists, I mean, the field is really open. So Braden goes on to say that the past has changed forever and that the question is no longer when will a great shift occur. The question now is where are the changes leading and what can we realistically expect and what does it all mean for us, our families, our communities, our lives.
Mm.
And when I read that, that really just, for some reason, it just struck me and I resonated with it because when we talk about wisdom, it's not magic. We all have a brain. Everybody's got this ability. It's just that there are distortions or things that get in the way. And part of what my work has been about, and I value, and I certainly participate and enjoy looking at other modalities. I just feel I was born to do this work in the Silva method. I mean, it just feels right, and that's why I'm the training director, and I get to develop our team of instructors. I get to help them maintain our quality standards so that we give the best possible service for our students who are trusting us, to guide them with this very intimate process. As you may remember, it's a 4-day process.
Mm-hmm.
that I call the 4-day immersion experience of life and intuition system. And our real forte is awakening intuition and developing it. I'm going to read something more that Braden went on to say, if I may, because it's really pretty
Sure.
cool. That right now, you and I, we all have very powerful tools. And the most powerful force in the universe is your spirit.
Mm.
And when we raise our level of consciousness to our spiritual self and understand these spiritual laws, and we are in alignment with that, we're more likely to manifest more of the good in our lives. It's not
Mhm.
that we're perfect. And I'm very sensitive to what's going on the internet today with a lot of false promises, a lot of quick fix remedies. The Silver Method is the most copied, most imitated program of its type, and I see too many individuals, use my language, bastardizing. The
Mhm.
truth of it is that with tools, with skills, it's not easy. We make it easier when we have the reliable tools and the skills, you know, in this awakening process. So if we go back to entrepreneurs or salespeople, for some of the people listening tonight, maybe they want to increase in the next 90 to 120 days their sales, their business by 5, maybe 20%. For people who are on the call who are more concerned about their relationships with their children, with a loved one, a spouse, with people they work with, perhaps they'd like to deepen their understanding, get on the same wavelength with these people in our lives so that we can communicate more effectively and reduce, minimize conflict.
Mhm.
For some people on the call, we have professionals, be they therapists, be they doctors, be they coaches, consultants. Boy, you really have to be intuitive. I mean, there's work we do and there's studies and education, rigorous education, depending on the field, of course. And yet there's also the component of our intuition. And that's where the Silver Method comes in. That's where I come in. And why I say it's my favorite topic, because for all these years, that's what I've been playing with, just having a blast, helping people discover that, yes, they have the ability and how to clear a path to their wisdom. So,
Mm.
for example, if you don't mind me saying, to you folks listening, Angelica and I signed on, about 30, 35 minutes earlier, because I was working with a new computer. And it's interesting, we both had, especially me, difficulty with the internet and getting a clear connection and getting the microphone working. And I think we've all been there. And it can be frustrating. It can be very challenging. And if ever you're, like, for example, on a Wi-Fi service especially, although I'm directly lined in here, when we're using Wi-Fi service, sometimes the connection is very weak. And when it's weak, it fades in and out. And we lose our call maybe, or, we're not getting the information that we need. And that's what I'm suggesting is that we each have the ability, through developing skills, through practice, through our daily meditation, to align ourselves in such a way that we get into what some psychologists have identified as the flow state, where it seems like we're enjoying more synchronicity, more meaningful coincidences, more, geez, why do you bring that up? I've been thinking that myself. Or, Angelica, I think I know you to be very intuitive, and I'm going to guess that you've probably called up a dear friend, somebody you care about, whatever the reason, they were on your mind, and you just thought of them. And then when they say hello, they say something like, I've been thinking about you and concerned and wanting to talk to you. And here you are out of the blue, and you weren't planning to call them. It wasn't a scheduled call.
Mhm.
And these are the kinds of experiences that we all have. And yet the question remains, okay, but how do I know I'm not just wishfully thinking? Or how
Mhm.
do I know that I can really count on this? Maybe it's just my fear. I'm afraid something may happen. Because some
Mhm.
people have dreams like that. And our dreams are very tricky, aren't they? Because our
Oh,
dreams
yeah.
are a reflection of our hopes, our aspirations, and our fears and anxieties. And when we are in alignment with our source energy, our dreams become clearer and can be more profound and can actually be more precognitive, insightful with that.
Mhm.
So I know that was a very long-winded answer to your question.
No, but I mean, I think this is information that we really need to get out there, and people need to become aware of your story and how you began your passion and you really got involved. I mean, 43 years is it's huge, and you keep doing it because you see the power of the tools, the skills, you've seen the results. And I'm sure that if you didn't enjoy it and you didn't see results, you would not be here. So I'm going to start the PowerPoint for you. And for those of you that are listening, send us any questions or go ahead and put them in the chat room. Or if you are listening to the replay, then feel free to connect with us on Facebook and put your replies there or your questions there or your information that you might want to share with our community. So we have the first slide there. I don't know. You tell me when to move it, Ken, and I will move it for you.
Just as a
Can you
courtesy,
see it?
some people listening to this perhaps know Laura Silva Quesada. She's my dear friend. She's also the president of Silva International. And she came back with us. I just had a prompt. Let me just look.
Oops.
Just
Can you
okay.
see it?
Yeah, now it's clear. I thought it was
Okay.
to you. God bless technology. I have to say, folks, by the way, this is very cool. We can talk to people all over the world. However, I urge you, live, in person, in an intimate setting is where it's at. And Angelica mentioned before, and people often, how can you keep teaching the same stuff 43 years? Laura and I, it's because of the results you folks have. It's because of how you inspire us. It's because we're all in this together. We're one like big community on the planet Earth. And I don't have all the answers, and I won't ever claim that, nor does the Silver Method. But boy, we do have solutions for people and tools that can help to create more harmony. And when you and I are more harmonious and in better spirits, we're easier to live with. We're easier to work with. And I mean, we just can go on and on. So let's go on to the slides. And keeping to our topic, let's tie this in with intuition. And Angelica, if you'd be so kind, let's go to the next one. And
Okay.
this is definitions of intuition. I'm going to put my glasses back on because I want to read this clearly. This is something I came up with. A bridge to higher awareness, a part of you that rests on the foundation of all knowledge, all wisdom, all truth, all love, and infinite possibilities. Let's take a look at what some other people say. So we can go to the next slide. And folks, I want to go on to the how to focus your intuition just to whet your appetite. This is from John Holland. He lives here in New England, not too far from me. I live in Connecticut. He says, intuition is the language of the soul. We're all born aware with a profound sense of inner knowing. It is one of the greatest gifts we possess, which keeps us connected to our higher selves, the universe, and to our divine spirit. Let's go to some quotable quotes to the next one. And I wanted to do this tonight. Angelica and I have been preparing because I thought it would be cool and helpful and useful to you to just get some different perspectives, not just from Angelica and myself. Harvard University and INSEAD, leading European university, they both concluded this is more than 20 years ago from their research that the two most effective tools for the 21st century executives are meditation and intuition. And I think there isn't a day that goes by that there's not another study published about meditation. Intuition, not so much, but more and more. Let's go to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
For example, at McGill University, Dr. Henry Mintzberger, School of Management. Again, this goes back more than 20 years ago. He did a study of 200 top-level corporate managers. Organizational effectiveness, he said, lies in the blend of clear-headed logic and powerful intuition. So yes, if we want to be more effective as human beings, make better decisions, wiser, enhance your business, increase your revenue, connect with someone more effectively. We do need logic. We do need critical thinking skills. We do need our frontal lobes, of course. And we also need to integrate that with,
Mm-hmm.
just like Andrew Weil would say about integrative medicine. He goes on to say that the history of science makes clear that the greatest advancements in man's understanding of the universe are made by intuitive leaps at the frontiers of knowledge, and not by intellectual war. And that's why I made my comment before. I mean this very sincerely, and I want to be respectful. We have great books written about the Silver Program. There are wonderful home study CD programs. They're all over the place. I got to tell you, folks, every time people like you who have listened to those and they're getting good value from them, they're excellent, and they come into a live class, it's night and day. Because in order for transformation to take place, we need that brain to brain that they call mirror neurons, that effect. And that's what happens when you're live. You have the synergy of the group. And this is part of what I'm saying is that intellect is important to knowledge. One thing to know something, it's another thing to live it. Another thing to integrate it and to work it. So with due respect, I meet people who have more PhDs than I knew existed, and they know all this intellectually. They've been to every seminar, but they have yet to integrate it, which is where we come in. Let's go next one. Let's go a few more. If we go to, this is from the dictionary, Funk and Wagner. A spontaneous phenomenon which cannot be contrived or forced, the act or faculty of knowing directly without the use of the rational process. This is very cool. So, and then just one more, Krishnamurti, intelligence highly awakened is intuition, which is the only true guide in life. And my favorite, Bob Buckminster of Buckminster, famous architect, philosopher, philanthropist, intuition is like cosmic fishing. And it's so true, isn't it? Because sometimes you just don't know. So let's take a look at some other points and let's advance some more. So we're looking at the possibility discoveries, inventions in science. Some of the greatest medical breakthroughs and innovations happened by seeming by accident. You know, if you look in some of the annals, someone had an idea, they dared to be different. They were criticized. And everyone talks about Edison and Tesla and, and working with electricity. And people during the day, their day, thought they were crazy. These guys out to lunch. Now it's just all history. If we look at in the arts, when Mr. Silva first did his work between 1944 and 1966, the first people other than children that he worked with were artists, musicians. And he found that when he worked with them in what we call the alpha state and using some of the principles of dynamic meditation that we teach, they were enhancing their artistic confidence. There's a famous story about Richard Bach, the author of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, that he told when he took the Silva training, that how he would often have blocks. He could, he would have an idea, but he wouldn't finish it. And when he took Silva, it helped him to be less blocked, to keep in flow, and as a result, he finished that greatest runaway bestseller, Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And the list goes on: problem solving, precognition, recognizing past patterns and possibilities. Many futurists seem to be very intuitive. Trendsetters, entrepreneurs. Successful entrepreneurs have an uncanny knack of being in the right place way before it reaches critical mass, way before it becomes trendy, which gives them an edge in their business. In my opinion and experience working with people from all walks of life, I would call it, it's being, call it what you will, I call it intuition, and it can be refined. So here's a quick example. It's kind of a fun one, if I may, just in business. This is an entrepreneur. This goes back a few decades. This entrepreneur is in the shower, and while he's taking a shower, he has an idea, a new business. And the idea he had was to market pandas, stuffed pandas, the Chinese bear. Well, he brought that idea to his business associate, and they said, "What, are you kidding? What the heck is a panda? Nobody in the U.S. would even know what a panda is." and this was way back. And they said, plus the teddy bear has got a corner on the market. We need another stuffed animal like we need a Holden head. Not a good idea. He was stubborn. He felt so strong about it. He capitalized it, started manufacturing stuffed pandas, getting ready to sell them. And in the meantime, Richard Nixon was president of the U.S. As you may remember what happened. He made a famous trip to China, made friends with the Chinese ambassadors, and came back with a taste of Chinese culture. And Americans are known for being very trendy and for setting trends. And almost overnight, his sales went through the roof because all of the major zoos in America began to import from China pandas for their zoos. And almost overnight, his sales.
Mhm.
The list goes on and on. This famous chemist, August Kerkuli, came up with the theory of the benzene ring. He had a daydream, seeing what looked like a snake chasing its tail, but it was all lit up like a bowl. And that was a spark, an insight, if you will, that sparked the idea of the benzene ring theory, which became known as fact. Now to watch, I could go on for hours, because I think these are just very cool examples. So to you listening, what about you? What are some of the ideas you've had? What are some of the hunches you've had? What are some of the insights that were correct and that maybe were not? So let's go to the next couple of slides. And the point I want to make is that it's very important that you and I honor and respect who we are. And one of the biggest questions that has been in the Silva seminars since day one, I'm having trouble visualizing. How do you visualize? Well, to make a long story short, there are three primary channels of perception and communicate, which is communication. It's communications 101. Some people, by their very nature, are auditory. And when they say something like, I hear what you're saying, I hear you, man, loud and clear. That's objectively speaking. Subjectively, when it comes to an intuition, comes from the subjective dimension. In parapsychology, which is the branch of psychology that studies this phenomenon, they would call that clairaudience. It comes from the French, meaning clair or clear hearing. Interestingly enough, objectively speaking, some people are more kinesthetic. Now they've got to touch things, got to feel it. And they're the people talking about, I feel the vibe. Feel those vibes. In parapsychology, they would call that clairsentient, clear feeling. I'm dominantly kinesthetic myself. When I first took Silva in May of 1971, I had no visualization at all. When I closed my eyes to meditate, it was dark, it was blank. The third primary communication channel, they say, is visual. So you hear people say, I see it, it's as clear as a blue sky. And they tend to communicate with words that are visual in nature. And the same thing is true, I find in all my years' experience, with our intuition. Some people are naturally clairvoyant or clear seeing. So it's not like what Hollywood movies have made it seem like. These are just channels of perception. So the first tip I want to offer, in order to focus your intuition effectively, you've got to just be true to who you are. All of this can be developed. It takes practice. We spend 4 solid days from 9 in the morning till 7 at night, by the way. It's very cool, fun. It sounds long. It is a long day, but it flies by. Developing these faculties, exercising them, providing feedback. What I want to say is you can't force it. And if you want to be more visual, you'll need to take steps to improve that skill. It's not going to come to you because you're a good person and because you meditate every day. It's something that needs to be developed. So if we look at this as a way of perceiving, there are obstacles. I used as the example the internet, and just the other day we have Wi-Fi, of course, in our office, in our home, etc. And some of our computers are directly connected, and some of our devices are on the Wi-Fi. And no matter what we did the other day, we kept losing our connection. Well, the same thing happens to us as human beings, that there are influences, challenges that we all experience that can serve to distort our connection, that can create resistance, that can make it more difficult to discern the difference. So one could be our environment. We need to be in a supportive environment. If you're on the path to your spiritual growth and well-being, you want to thank someone like Angelica for her show and other people like her, because she's creating an environment, an online environment, a hangout, where you can be with like-minded people and not feel that you're being ridiculed or made fun of. I know we get less and less of that today, but there's still that element with some people who don't quite understand, the nature of this work that we all are interested in doing. So it's very important because our environment plays a big impact. And by environment, I mean, yes, the physical surroundings. So it's important that they're not toxic, because if we're breathing toxic air, if we're drinking toxic water or foods, etc., that will hurt our temple, our body. And if we live with people or work with people or associate with people who are negative, overly critical, it can have a toxic emotional effect on us, and it will dampen and be a big form of resistance. Second thing is our cultural conditioning, which also relates to the environment, doesn't it? I mentioned myself, I was born and raised as Roman Catholic. We had a pope in our family, I'm told. He just passed away 2 years ago, not the pope, that was hundreds of years ago, but we had a Franciscan bishop who was a missionary in Brazil, my cousin. So I come from a whole line of clergy, and I was raised in an Italian family, and I'm told that every Italian mother's dream is that her son will become a priest. So all the guys in the family are kind of groomed, for that. And it's funny, I didn't become a priest, but I do work that's in service to humanity, which is what priests do. But my point is the cultural conditioning, it can become like a virus that can spread. And we see certain limiting beliefs, certain negative limiting beliefs being perpetuated generation after generation after generation like a virus. And people then believe, oh, it must be the truth. And if you look at Dr. Broder's work called Virus of the Mind, it's almost a sociological study of how these negative limiting beliefs pass on through the family from one generation to the next, leading us to believe there must be, something scientific to it, and only to find that that's not the case. So we've got to unlearn a lot of limiting beliefs. We've got to, so to speak, tap that power of our subconscious mind, because some of the files that have been imprinted since we were born are not serving our highest good, and are not supporting our spiritual growth, and are not supporting us from creating a fantastic life, or creating a better life, or just being at peace for that. So this is, again, where we need reliable skills, and I feel an obligation to remind people of that whether you become interested in the Silver Method program or whatever it is you're interested in, it's going to take some work. It's going to take some effort. Sometimes there'll be a lot of work, but the end result is amazing. And I would say, I love my life. I don't always like that. We haven't got a perfect life. We face plenty of challenges. But boy, I have no regrets. And I think it's possible for any of us. We don't have to be silver instructors. It's just a matter of recognizing we have choices and having the tools to help us make better choices. Let's move on a little bit more. And what I want to spend some time as much as possible is some of these other focusing principles and tips. However, what you see, if you're looking at the slide along here with me, is that some of the distortions are what's called a projection. A projection simply means something we really want, we're hoping hoping. I just got a phone call the other day. Somebody interested is enrolling in Chicago with me to do the silver program. And his question was, he and his buddy, they play cards. Can I use my intuition to read, my opponents better? And in fact, it comes up a lot in classes, people who like to go to the casinos. Well, I'm not one to encourage that, and I wouldn't because it's really tricky. And I won't say, I'll say yes, it's possible. Sure it is. However, it's very tricky because projection means when we really, really want something and we're hoping, we're not necessarily getting accurate information or accurate markers guiding us. We're being guided by wishful thinking. And that is a distortion to intuition. It's like we want it too much. We're almost obsessed. I gotta have it. And obsessive thinking creates anxiety. Obsessive thinking creates tension. And obsessive thinking will throw us out of alignment. It's that simple. The second one is ego gratification. Just wanting to feel like, we're so great and not wanting to be wrong. Especially if we're working with other people and they have an idea or an insight that seems to go contrary to what we've come up with. And of course, a biggie for people is fear. And I say it's a biggie, maybe the biggest, most important consideration is because we know that within the brain, you and I are wired for one thing primarily. Biologically speaking, we are wired, number one priority, for survival. And if ever we are in an environment or a situation that is indeed a threat to our health and our well-being, we will go into fear and the brain will take over. The interesting thing is, even if we're really not in such an environment, but we think we are, and we're imagining things, we still go into fear. And that will distort the truth. Like all systems shut down, and the brain goes into, you'll either go into fight, flight, or freeze, which is something I've been studying for 20 years. I collaborate with psychotherapists. A dear friend of mine who was many more my years, my senior, passed away 2 years ago, and they did a lot of intensives with her and work, and I was helping her actually develop seminars. And I really became a student of understanding this mechanism, and I found it's probably the single biggest influence on people. There are people listening right now who are probably expert in what they do, but they're afraid of making a mistake, of not succeeding, so they hold back and don't take that next step, which could really take them to another level. Again, these are all topics in and of themselves, and what I'm hoping tonight we can do is at least paint a picture. How about you, Angelica? You okay there?
I am fine. I'm just listening, and I would like to participate, but I think that your information is just powerful, and our audience would benefit from. I mean, I've been wanting to interrupt you, believe me, but I'm into the conversation that or the instruction that you're giving, that I think it's powerful.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
You are too, remember. Well, do interrupt if you want, if you have an idea you want to express, because your listeners know and love you. And I like to hear your viewpoint too, but I know that you and I will probably be chatting more and more.
Oh, yeah.
This flow state, I'm not even going to attempt to say the guy's name. He's a famous of Hungarian descent psychologist. He's at a university in Illinois, I believe it's Claremont. But basically, he identified, he says, this thing called the flow state. If you go to the next slide, where it seems like the universe has got your back.
Was it that one, or did I move to?
No, just go to the very next one. Oh, no, I'm sorry, it's not there. My mistake. You can stay where we are.
Oh, okay.
It seems like the universe has got your back.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that we're perfect. It just means that we're in alignment. So allow me to explain that. In the same way we can tune into Wi-Fi, make sure we have the strongest connection, or your mobile phone, which is another one, isn't it? The funniest thing, some people in their homes, they're in their bedroom and they can't get cell service, but they go to another room and they get good clear service. Or if you go and put the phone by the window, you get better service. It depends. And then if you're in an elevator, you lose it, and so on and so forth. So part of being in alignment requires creating coherent emotions. A coherent emotion meaning that we are feeling gratitude. We're feeling appreciative of any progress we've made, any any development. Very important, and I'm so thrilled to hear more and more people encouraging us to journal feelings of gratitude. There's the gratitude challenge. It's not. It's a very, very worthwhile daily exercise. I do it every day in my morning meditation as part of my morning, how I start my day. Just a few minutes of my meditation, feeling and expressing genuine gratitude for anyone or anything in my life that comes to mind. Just appreciate it. And also acknowledge shortcomings, challenges and what you want to work on. But it first starts with that coherent emotion of gratitude. That gets us into that. The flow state also is the focusing principles will help you to get more and more into a flow state with your intuition. Please, let's go to the next one, Angelica.
I even want to say, because you mentioned Dr. Whale, and I've studied a lot of his work, and he's a medical physician who trains other medical doctors with the medical field, but at the same time integrating alternative medicine. And one of the things he talks about is meditation and breath work so that you can be in tune with your intuition. So for those of you that are listening, in order to get into that flow state and be in flow with your inspiration and everything that's coming in, meditation is a beautiful way, and breath work. If you really want to learn more, Dr. Whale would be a person to tap into as well.
Thank you. I'm going to spell it because I agree with you wholeheartedly. He's one of my heroes.
Mm-hmm.
W-I-L. He's got a great website. May I tell you a quick Andrew Watt
Yes.
story
Mm-hmm.
of synchronicity? In my early days as a Silva instructor, I'm in Boston area. I'm downtown Boston at the Lenox Hotel, and I was still a student, and I would meet the students as they came to the class. That was part of the deal. There was an administrator. He just basically paid me to teach the classes. But anyway, in my class, I'm recommending Andrew Weil's book that just came out, The Natural Mind. Excellent book, by the way, if you haven't read it. And in that class, I didn't know was his publishing agent from Houghton Mifflin. And I'm going on about how great the book is. And she said, on the intermission, would you like to meet him? He's coming to town. I said, are you kidding me? Of course. Well, at the time, I was the director in Boston for the graduate organization, and we had a monthly meeting where we'd have hundreds of people, and we'd have a guest speaker. So I met him and organized for him to give a talk. And there was no fee. I mean, he was so gracious and generous at this time. It was so funny. I'd never met him. This is my first time we met, said hello. He shows up with a long ponytail. He was a little bit more slender than and his hair was darker, of course. This goes back 40 years. Had his beard, his full beard, wearing jeans, fry boots. Those are the boots that the cavalry used to wear. And I used to wear them in college. And a work shirt. Why I say that is because in the room were hundreds of medical people. We had contacted Harvard and all the facilities because Boston's a major university town, and Boston is very ultra conservative. I mean, you could almost hear the room gasp I'm introducing. I'm the MC, and then 2 minutes into his talk, you can hear a pin drop in the room. I mean, he's brilliant, brilliant man, and it didn't get in the way. But for those few seconds, which seemed like an eternity, you could almost hear them thinking, "What?" And meanwhile, of course, he's a medical doctor. He was trained at Harvard himself. He's very well credentialed. But I thought that's the kind of thing when you're in alignment and in flow state. things like that happen, and my whole life has happened. I've shared the stage with Deepak Chopra. I got to introduce at one of our conventions. I've met some of the coolest people, in the industry, seemingly by accident, not because I'm a silver representative necessarily, and that just different things with these synchronicities that have helped me improve myself and my presentation, that have
Mhm.
helped me to, develop in my career. And this first principle is, I don't know if it's fair to say the most important, but I gave a tip before about honoring yourself. Well, this one, number one, says you want to be clear about your intention. And it's important that you have a clearly defined value and a deep sense of purpose as to why you want to be more intuitive. What are the benefits? How will it benefit you, anyone you care about? It's important that the awakening and developing of your intuition is in alignment with your value, with what's important to you in life, or that it's in alignment as a tool, if you will, a skill to help you stay in alignment with your values, to get more of what you want, to be that person you want to be, to increase your income, to make better decisions. I know it seems obvious, but it's why, like, for example, in a program like Silva, the first thing I would ask people is, you got to make sure that you really want to be here. You can't force anyone to do this. You've probably had this, Angelica, in your life. You can encourage, you can inspire, you can recommend, but then it's up to the person to say, yes, I'm interested, tell me more.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the other things that I find very interesting, I don't know if you've read the book, but it's called From Good to Great by Jim Collins, and it's a lot of research on successful companies like Walgreens, Procter and Gamble, and all those successful companies, and it's just intense research for 25 years. But the whole gist about that research is that you have to have a disciplined person, which is developing the leader within you. And then having that disciplined thought, which goes into the intuitive part of you, and then connecting it to that logical part. And then the discipline action, because you can think, you can have inspirations, you can have the intuition, you can have everything. But if you don't have the discipline to put things into action and take steps necessary, then nothing's going to come about, and you're not going to be able to achieve the level of success that you're hoping for. It's always going to it's always going to remain at that dream level of the wishful thinking. So,
Well, it's true.
yeah.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for bringing up that book. It sounds great.
Mhm.
Because as you were saying that, excuse me, it reminds me also that when Mr. Silva was alive, he passed away late 1990s, as you know. He used to say his mission, we're on a mission to convert the planet into a paradise. And
Mhm.
I'll tell you, even to this day, it's hard for me to relate to that. It's like it's too big, too big. So I've chunked it down to one person at a time, in my own way. And part of our mission in our organization is, we're a seminar company, yes, but we're really a seminar company with the intention of enriching the planet by empowering the individual. And we
Mhm.
believe that when individuals are empowered, when individuals have skills, and as you said, and utilize their discipline and create, a better life, a more fulfilling life, it spreads. It
It
spreads like a virus,
does.
a good virus.
Oh my God, yeah. It's that. It is. It's like a virus. And the most important for those of you that are listening out there, one of the theories that I'm really tapping into, and because of intuition, one day I'm sitting there and I'm asking my guides in the universe and saying, okay, what do I need to do to really get my message out there? And the word multiplication came into my head, and I'm like, what does that mean? And the deeper I've gone into, like when there's the virus theory, there's the chaos theory, and when you really look at it, all it takes is one person at a time. But when you do it deeply and with a deep connection and intention and with heart, all you need is touching one person, and you create that Matthew effect where, whoa, it's that virus effect where, I mean, people come to you, and you don't even have to struggle to get all these clients and people. It just happens. Like Joe Silva. I mean, what happened? It started with one person, right?
Yeah.
One
So far,
person.
yeah, and then he has 10 children, as you know. You know some of them, I anticipate.
Yes, I know.
And then to all the neighbors' children, and he worked with thousands because he found children were much more open and receptive, and then adults, and then most of those adults were artists and musicians at first, or excuse me, artists primarily. But
Hmm.
let's go to the second slide because you bring up again brilliant timing, Angelica, about
Uh-huh.
discipline. It's important. The second focusing principle would be attention, paying attention and making the time. So go one more.
Okay.
I covered that already. This one. You know, I want to go on because time is moving by. Let's
Okay.
get the slides. I'm always overly ambitious. There we go. Number two.
Okay.
And excuse us for racing through that,
Oops.
but we want to
Hmm.
honor your time. So if you go back to number two, the attention, there you go, and practice. Because I want to cover as many of these focusing principles because they'll help you. For example, Angelica just reminded us about you got to have that discipline. You got to take the first baby step, so to speak, in practice, and that means making the time. And if you're presently, meditation, by the way, does not have to be a religious experience. It can just be honoring our body, giving our body a pause, time, and our brain to rest, to recharge, and rejuvenate. And even though we just had a full night's rest, when you do this in the morning, it sets the tone for the day. It creates that alignment, literally. It creates a centering effect. And you can also, if you know any mental rehearsal skills of visualization, creative visualization, it's a good way to then organize for the day. So it's something like intuition, keeping on this particular topic. I remember when my children, we have three children, Barbara and I, were younger, and we were on a long car ride, and how children can be. We'd play games. Okay, Daddy's thinking of fruit. What fruit am I thinking of now? It was just to entertain them. I wasn't trying to develop anything. I was trying to get them to behave. But I began to realize that I was actually making time with them to pay attention to things like that, their inner sensing. And there's all sorts of games that as you become aware of things that you can do. Let's go to the next one, number three. And as you make that time, then the skill, relaxation, inner silence. So since I mentioned relaxation or meditation, some people consider relaxation to be the number one awakener of our intuition naturally. If you study Buddhist monks, people who've meditated for years and years and years, it's part of their practice, part of maybe their religion, part of their spiritual practice. They may not talk about intuition per se, but they're very naturally sensitive and intuitive. It's a natural byproduct of meditation, but meditation is quieting the physical senses. It's the breath work. And Andrew Weil, I do that too, by the way, his breath work. And the breath work that quiets our physiology, that causes our brain waves to slow down, much like they do when we sleep. And when we can do that and stay awake and stay conscious, it's a way of shifting our conscious awareness. So today people talk about mindfulness. We're teaching mindfulness and have been. That, in fact, started almost 40 years ago at University of Massachusetts with John Kabat-Zinn. He's the original developer of that expression, mindfulness, by the way, in the research. And now it's become more prominent because there's so much research going on with the value, the benefits. So mindfulness is directing our thoughts in a specific way, being consciously focused in a very specific way. In the Silva method, we teach both the active and the passive components, which is why we call it dynamic meditation. So you could go for a nature walk. I walk every day. I work out 5 days of 7, and I find some of my, I won't say my best, but I often get intuitive insights while I'm walking. or while I'm walking on the beach. I love walking on the beach. That's why I put the picture there. I love just taking off my shoes and socks. I just gotta get my toes in the water. And I find that when I do that for any period of time, more than 5, 10 minutes, invariably it's like being in another state, isn't it? And ideas come for writing. If you're an author or if you're an artist, you'll have ideas. If you're a business person, you'll come up with solutions. But wouldn't it be cool if you could, you may not always be able to go to the beach, but wouldn't it be cool if we could just, on a daily basis, in 5 or 10 minutes of our time, take a pause as if we were walking on the beach and create that same effect to get those ideas. And that's part of what the meditation experience can do for us. Listening to good music. I have a feeling that Angelica, you probably like music. One of the things, I've made many trips to Laredo, Texas, where Silva was born. And
Oh
boy,
yeah.
people in Laredo love music and love to dance, as I do too. And you can take it.
Salsa, merengue.
Well, I fake merengue. I'm not really. I'm not really. I mean, I have rhythm and I have a beat, but I just, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm embarrassing, but I sure have a lot of fun. And even the Texas line dance, the two-step.
Oh yeah.
I mean, but I actually like do my own thing because I find if I do, I get lost in the music and I'm more likely to have an intuitive experience than calculating what steps to take next. I'm a little bit.
Yeah. You know, even in my live events, I always incorporate dancing and movement because I feel you need to move the body so that the energy and you could really connect to your intuition. I mean, that's what I believe, you know.
Well, we're so much on the same page. I love
Hmm.
listening to you too because same thing in my live events, same thing. Get up periodically, have them stretch, move around, etc. So let's go to the
Hmm.
next one. I mean, just watching time. And folks,
I know.
we, Angelica and I talked about we would spend as much time as we could. This is just some ideas: breath work, walking in the woods, contemplative practice. Let's go on to
Okay.
the next one.
Oops.
So the next one is honesty and avoid self-bias, meaning Buckminster Fuller used to say, dare to be naive. Allow yourself, give yourself permission not to have all the answers. That you might make a mistake. You could be wrong. And it's very important. I know that in the silver classes, it's 4 days. I call it the 4-day immersion. And on day number 3, for 2 days, we've been practicing clearing a path, getting into that state. And then in the morning of the 3rd day, we do a little intuition exercise. Knocks people's socks off. So they get a chance to evaluate. Sometimes they make mistakes. They're off. Sometimes they're spot on. Then we practice some more during the day. And then the end of the day, day 3, we do psychometry and we get a test of our intuition. And it helps us develop points of reference, markers, if you will, so that we begin to discern the difference between when I'm correct and when I'm off. So my point about the honesty is it's okay to make a mistake, and often people initially hold back for fear that they don't want to be wrong, they don't want to feel foolish. But we're all in it together. That's the beauty of being in a live event with like-minded people. We're all sharing the same experience. Let's go to a few more. Let's go next and see what more we can cover.
Okay.
Now, a total of 12.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to interrupt here.
I don't mind. It's important. You can go to the next one. That's I've already mentioned about Buckminster Fuller. That's a quote of his. Receptivity and sensitivity. Well, much of what we've been talking about, that nature walk, meditation, helps us to be receptive and sensitive. And if
Yeah.
you think of your values and your benefits, that will help to increase that. And that is definitely a skill set. So
Hmm.
Mr. Silva developed what we call mental projection exercises, and we do them in day 3. Angelica, I don't know if you remember them or not. We do all sorts of fun games with our imagination, with metals, with tree, with a plant,
Oh,
leaves,
yes.
a pet. I mean, they're on one level they're silly exercises. On another level, they help us to cultivate imagination, creative imagination. And why is that important? No matter who you study, we're told in so many words Whatever you can conceive of and believe and you can achieve of. See yourself the way you want to be. Do this. Visualize yourself, your ideal self, your future self. I'm not making fun. However, that's easier said than done. If you take Napoleon Hill's famous quote, the brief part of the quote, whatever you can conceive of and believe then you can achieve, the first step is what can you conceive or believe to be possible for you, and then believe in yourself. So if you hear what I'm saying, that there's so much to this that takes, like you said, Angelica, that discipline. For some people, the discipline might mean to attend one of your live events, Angelica, one of my live events, or to read a book, or to practice with a friend, because that's what makes it happen. Let's go to another
Absolutely.
one.
Yeah, and I also think that it's really important that you out there, if you're listening to this webinar, that you learn how to, the meditation and the breath work that Ken is talking about helps you to be able to filter out information that you don't need, because we have billions of information that's coming in, but when you refocus and you pay attention and you sit in silence, you're able to filter out information that you don't need, and you begin to gain clarity, and that's intuition. It's a thought that's inspired, and it comes from nowhere. But your mind has to be cleared, and then that's when you can actually distinguish between noise and inspiration or intuition.
This is really fun, Angelica. Going back and forth because often I find myself giving presentations, myself. It's nice to have somebody to go back and forth with. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Which goes on to this next one, be playful, childlike. And for those of you who know the history of the Silva method, we've got 22 years of research starting in 44. And Mr. Silva worked with his own children. And at first, he was interested in helping them to improve memory and their learning capacity. Laredo, Texas used to be an area that had a high poverty level, perpetuated poverty level. Now it's more of a boom town in many ways because of all the natural gas finds, oil, and industry, and so on and so forth. However, that was his dream. He wanted them to not drop out of school, which was very common back in the 40s. Children had to help the family. And he started guiding them through a meditative or alpha experience, we call it, a dynamic meditation. And he would read to them from their studies, their books, their schoolwork, and they were retaining it. It was working. They were indeed learning faster and easier. However, some time after doing that, now he's working with neighborhood children, some of the children began to anticipate his questions accurately. They began to get like they were reading his mind. One came up with what he was going to talk about today. They were gathering a session, and he said he did it last night. He was in his alpha state, the child said. Meanwhile, Jose made up his mind that morning over breakfast what he was going to discuss with the children. So I would say we've modeled in our organization children that playful. I didn't say childish, but childlike playfulness. Have fun. Make it fun. And the more fun it is, the more you want to do it. In fact, many have suggested it's a known activator of creative inspiration. I believe it to be an activator of intuition, a playful, childlike quality. Let's go on to number 7, unless you want to add something, Angelica.
No, I think that that's powerful what you said, that we miss that point of just being like that child and having fun, because when you're in your head of being perfect and being right, and then that's when you miss it. That's when you miss the intuition. That's when you're not on target, because you want to be in a perfection and be this perfect adult,
Once again, you go right into number 7. Excellent. So
Mm.
cool. Trust and courage, meaning the most common thing initially people say is, I feel like I'm making it up. I don't know, I feel silly. This couldn't be. So when you actually, this is one of the focusing principles, it's one of the later number ones, but when you have points of reference, when you have feedback, someone saying yes or no. You have a game, you're given an assignment, something to intuit, and then you're at, for example, on the last day of the silver training, we actually sit, and we do as many 10 times, by the way, with a partner, and they bring to the session something they know about that we have no clue about. We're asked to use what we've learned in the silver class, and we're asked to intuit it, come up with information, and then we're given immediate feedback, yes or no, close, spot on. And after doing it 5, 3, 10 times, let alone all the times we do in the class, you begin to recognize patterns. You begin to recognize, and it builds your courage, it builds your confidence. And you begin to recognize the distinctive difference between when you're wishfully thinking, or in fear, or just way off, or when you're accurate. So let's all give ourselves permission not to be perfect, that we're all in process learning. Let's go to number 8, please. Again, allow yourself the space not to be perfect.
Oops, sorry.
8 would be, not as perfect, it's just, so number 8, go back to 8.
Yeah.
Acceptance and empathy, love and acceptance. How I want to put that is that it goes back to number 1 about being in alignment with your values. If we're accepting ourselves and we're getting into a state where we're not judging someone else, we're just like a reporter observing what's going on, no judgment. Not like what the news broadcasters do, and I'm not going to mention the station, but I find it horrible where they're putting so much judgment and elaborating and making such distortions of the truth. There's such a predisposition to what's wrong with that. We need to observe, not talk about it, not think about it, not accept it or reject it, not question it. Just observe what you're sensing, what you're picking up, what you're visualizing, or what you're feeling, or what you're hearing. And then with the feedback, we begin to build our courage. So when I say about that, and also the empathy comes in, is keep in mind how maybe you could develop this to improve conditions, to enhance the quality of life for someone, to help somebody you care about. All that helps us, makes it easier to tune in. Let's go to number 9, please. Again, you can see that the slides already covered this. That's the non-judgmental attitude, accepting ourselves and embracing what is. And that's where also detachment comes in. Meaning, yes, we want to have a passion for a more fulfilling life. Yes, we have goals and we work toward those goals. I have to say, it's really an art. It truly is an art form where we care and we don't care. Kind of a fine line, because if our programming, if our mental rehearsal becomes obsessive, I just have to have it. I tell you, it doesn't work. It creates anxiety. And some people think they're being passionate and they get crazy like that, and it doesn't work. So, especially with intuition, hey, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If I'm right, I'm right. If I'm correct, who cares? I just do the best I can. When I first went to Silva, I was so worried. Am I an alpha? Am I deep enough? How will you know? Because I was feeling nothing. And my instructor told me, he says, Ken, I think he did this to get me to just shut up because I had 100 million questions. He said, just use the technique that we taught you, 3-to-1 method, and tell yourself, bingo, I'm at my level, whatever that means. When I started doing that, I started having wonderful experiences. So he taught me a way to detach from the outcome and not be so obsessive.
Absolutely, and I agree with that. I have to agree with that, Ken, because our brain is so powerful that we can create by default. And when I say that, it means that if you don't detach from the intuitive thought or inspiration that you had, and you're thinking, well, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, I felt it and I was told, or whatever you're going to call it as your intuition, then you could actually co-create it and really attract what you don't want, because it's a repeated thought that's just over and over and over again that you are creating by default. Meaning,
Exactly.
yeah, meaning that you didn't want it, but there it is.
I think listening to the two of us, Angelica, because we both practice, we both, are living these principles and exploring. And I have to say, the only difference between me and and most of our listeners,
Mm-hmm.
level of experience, level of practice, and years working with it, which certainly counts. I mean, that we call wisdom with that. But I couldn't resist when I saw this. I wanted to add to the slide. Remember the Karate Kid movie, wax on, wax
Mm-hmm.
off. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Make it a game, have fun, and practice. Let's go to the next one, please.
Yeah.
This is what I've been talking about all night. Make sure you journal, record your points of reference, your hits, your misses, and begin to look for the distinctions between when you're accurate, when you're not. It takes a lot of practice, but with the practice, you begin to recognize those patterns. By the
Mm-hmm.
time you leave the Silver 4-day training, you'll have ample points of reference and a high, high level. You won't be perfect, but you'll have a high level of confidence and a high level of certainty with respect to your intuition. In fact, most people leave and it's like their socks have been knocked off. It's like I'm still in awe. It's like, oh my God, it's amazing just how awesomely accurate people can be, even people who never thought they could do this. I've had more people sit through class and say, okay, Ken, I'm suspending my disbelief. And interesting thing, as soon as they do that and commit to that, then things happen.
Yeah, it does. It does. Just for those that are listening, I know that we're past the hour, but it's powerful information. And I know that if you truly want to know about intuition, then, this is the person to connect with. It's Ken Koshia, and he is an expert in this area because he's done it for 43 years, and he's an amazing person. When I met him at one of the Silver events, I said, I am going to interview this man one day, and here I am, interviewing him and having this conversation with him, which is also my passion. So,
Very interesting. And if I may
yeah.
add, if it's okay, it's
Uh-huh.
really, if you're interested in finding more, I invite you to visit my website. It's actually got a lot of content that's used as a model. I purposely put as much on there as I could: videos, testimonials, success stories. There's some free downloads, some PDFs of how science discovered the silver method on my website. There's in my own bio, of course, description of the class, what you learn, and so on and so forth, schedules, even a link to other silver instructors. The Silver Method of Connecticut, if you just Google search Silver Method of Connecticut, it'll come right up for that. And
Okay.
I would say to you, for that, if what you're hearing tonight you're resonating with, and if you find it of value, boy, I would be honored to be your guide. Would love to have you in a class. And what Angelica's flashing up on the screen is some of the benefits of being in a live classes. Yes, the synergy of the group, being with like-minded people, you make some
Oops.
amazing connections. Uh, it's really transformative in that it's not the information you're given an opportunity. You have the confidence and the certainty of a professional who helps to bring it to life for you. And when you're in a live presentation, even whether it be even school academically, there's a transference from one brain to the other. And you're live like that. All of that. And plus have fun. And personally, I'm notorious for having fun. Class is full of a lot of humor, exercises, things to do. I mean, it's serious business, to improve our lives, but we can make it. So here's another tip for you. And I'll keep this on the screen for a moment, Angelica.
Okay.
And I ask, listen, what about you? Just some things to reflect on as you sign off from our call tonight. Whenever you've had intuition or a hunch, a gut feeling, was it a feeling? Was it a visual image? Was it in a voice? Pay attention to what seems to be dominant for you? What comes most naturally for you? And focus on that. The others will come with practice, but it's important that we focus on what, where we're flowing in an easier manner. If you go to the next slide, I think there's a nice picture of Jose,
Yes.
the man himself, the chief we used to call him, and one of his quotes that the greatest discovery you'll ever make is the potential of your own mind. I thank him. I have such love in my heart for him because he lit a fire in my belly. Well, I lit it, but he was the catalyst. I kept following him around. It's interesting how things work out because when I first got involved, my director was so busy being a director and ministering, and I'll just leave it at that, that whenever Jose came to town in Boston, we're the people who put the Silver Method on the map, by the way. He was one of the top instructors in the world, and we had a team of like 14, 15 instructors, and I was the director of the graduate organization, the support activity. And Jose came to New England several times a year, and I was the guy who would pick him up at the airport, take him to the airport, return, bring him out to dinner, to lunch, and it was great. I got to study and be with somebody who proved to be such a wonderful inspiration for me. So God bless you, Jose.
Yes.
Another slide. I think we may have a couple of others. I would just simply say, if you'd like to expand and develop your intuition, if you'd like to take this to another level, we have a program designed specifically with this in mind, with you in mind, to help you overcome the resistance, to help you overcome the obstacles, the challenges, the distortions of projection and bias, to help you develop those points of reference. Everything we've been talking about tonight. If you'd like to expand and awaken your intuition and achieve the results that we've hinted about tonight, awakening, developing, recognizing accurate, reliable intuition with trust and confidence, I recommend to you what we call the Silver Life System and Silver Intuition. It's part 1 and part 2. It's a 4-day training. It's based on Jose Silva's original time-tested research. So there are some other programs. The Silver Life System is just 2 days. That's just part 1. Excellent program. However, my favorite is day 3 and 4, what we call Intuition System, and the 4 days together is what we call the immersion experience. I purposely, that's how I went through it way back when, 4 days in a row. That's how I'm teaching it. It is more demanding. I agree on everybody. I got to tell you, it's well worth it because when people go through when you go through this 4-day immersion, I witnessed before my very eyes people's physiology changing, people making those shifts because you've got 4 days like a retreat, meditating, practicing with the tools, unplugging from your world, unplugging from everything else, and just giving yourself space. Just take a day off, call in sick, take a holiday, whatever it takes. I'll assure you it'll be well worth whatever it takes for that. And by the way, we stand behind that and always have. And if I may say this in closing, one thing I'm very proud of, Angelica, thank you for acknowledging me before about that, is there are many organizations come and go. There are many big names. They make millions of dollars and then they leave and they're gone. And here we are nearly 50 years later, still with you, still with people, still in the communities, offering our services. I've been here in New England since 1971. Many of our instructors are organizations, so we're here to stay for a very long time. And hey, thank you. This has been fun tonight. I hope I never even do more.
I loved it. Let's see. Okay. Well, I really want to thank everybody. Let me just kind of check in here and just thank everybody. I know that if you had any questions, I mean, feel free to find us on Facebook. Ken has his own Facebook. I have my Facebook. We have our personal Facebook. So connect with us. Connect with Ken. I've taken the classes. I'm a Silva graduate, and it was really empowering to confirm a lot of the things that I already knew. But thank you, Ken. Thank you. I had a blast, and I've learned a lot with you. So.
My pleasure, and I enjoy connecting too. And when you go on the website, guys, you'll find the contact info. I do answer my own phone. I do return calls, and love to hear from you.
Okay, well, everybody have a very good evening, and if it's morning wherever you're at, then good morning, and have an amazing day. And I always tell everybody, be weird, be amazing, be different, so that you can step into your greatness and you can be really empowered and achieve your goals and whatever you consider to be successful. But just be you, and have an amazing day. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye, Ken.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.